99.3 Nigeria Info. My name is Joyce.
Beautiful Monday afternoon to you. We're 99.3. This is Nigeria Info. Welcome to the sunny side. My name's Joyce. It's another Monday.
Hey ladies, you remember what happened to me last year? How can we ever forget that when 4 men proposed to you?
Yes, so Kayode, Emeka, Kingsley, and even Muhammad. In fact, I was asking God when.
Good. Now here is it. Another dating party is coming. A large gathering of singles in Nigeria, and I believe that it is your time to meet Mr. or Mrs. Right. I didn't tell you. Date is Sunday,
26th of May,
2024. Time is 4 p.m. The dress code is all white. To register, visit www.intimacyclinic.org/upcoming event or call 0818-457-5377. If you are single and you want to mingle, don't just miss this for anything. It's gonna be loud. For sponsorship, call 0818-457-5377. Let's go there.
ladies and gentlemen,
boys and girls, introducing the first of its kind in Nigeria.
the first radio just for kids. It's here at 101.7 Kids FM.
Are you serious?
Oh, yes.
It's going to be fun for kids on your airwaves 24/7.
Talking about from exciting games
Check.
to juicy gist
Double check.
and great music.
Super check.
All these and more on your number one PlayStation 101.7 Kids FM.
Don't be the last to join the train. Download the Kids FM app on your iOS or Play Store today and stay tuned on the go.
You can stream on our website at kidsfm.ng.
You can also follow us on all socials at kidsfm.ng and stand a chance to be one of the super kids.
On 101.7 Kids FM. Remember, it's no dull moments on Kids FM.
So tune in and stay locked on 101.7 Kids FM.
Let's play. Ladies and gentlemen, Football Fan Festival in Nigeria is back. It's Goldfest 2024, featuring exhilarating games, food, comedy, live music by some of the Nigerian musician superstars, and you can watch the UEFA Champions League final on a super huge screen. Goldfest 2024 will take place on the 1st of June at the Balmoral Convention Center, Federal Palace Hotel, Amadabella Way, Victoria Island, Lagos. Time 12 noon. Limited tickets available. Get your tickets now at www.goldfestnigeria.com or
at 267A at Timmy and Crescent, VI Lagos.
Goldfest 2024 is powered by Femi and the Gang and Football Republic. Proudly refreshed by Pepsi.
Now we're back on the Morning Crossfire.
Activate. We are radioactive on 99.3 Nigeria Info. My name is Joyce.
99.3 Nigeria Info, you on the sunny side. Hello and a very beautiful good day to you. It's a beautiful afternoon. The sun rises here. It's 28 minutes past 12. Another work week, another necessary matter to delve into. Well, yes, last week, Monday, unfortunately, our guest was here, but the internet didn't serve the purpose for which he was here. And he did agree to a rescheduling, and that is today. And I'm hoping that the internet doesn't fail. I called him this morning, hoping I could really just be gratified with his presence, but happened not to be the case. He's busy with other engagements, but at least allows us to pry into what has now become collective awareness, but maybe not so much of a definition or a comprehension to this general or collective awareness. When I say awareness, I mean you're aware because you know it, you've heard it, you've seen it. I think it was last week I went to get bananas, and I didn't go to the supermarket to buy a banana. I went to a store that sells vegetables and fruits to buy bananas, and I realized that there was something little off with the taste first. And then the most obvious, it didn't have seeds in it. And I don't know to what extent, I'm honestly not sure the degree or the reach that this whole construct of inorganic food has permeated or penetrated our food chain. I really don't know. And it's also because I sensed that the superstores would be selling imported vegetables that made me switch location, whereby fruits to a local store to buy the fruits and the vegetables. And now I go to a local store to buy fruits and vegetables, and I'm realizing that my fruits are missing seeds in them. Anyways, so we have Professor Qrisstuberg, Amua, and I cannot run through the entire length of his CV. He's a pleasure when it comes to his experience and his reach as far as the field of medicine goes. But if you wanted anyone, with an authority, besides the fact that he studied in China, I think the one I find particularly catchy is that he's a professor of inorganic, bioinorganic chemistry and was principal investigator in the novel multidisciplinary and transdisciplinary fields of inorganic, mechanochemistry, and metals and medicine. So if you wanted an authority, if you wanted someone who is of the experience within the walls of research and outside the walls of human existence and living, we certainly could not get a better find than the person of Professor Qrisstuberg, Amua. And I'm hoping he would join us real soon, turning on his camera. He'll need to turn on his camera. He's in Abuja. Say a short prayer for me. A very short prayer for me that the internet doesn't fail today. And if you have said that prayer, today on 99.3 Nigeria Info, we're discussing GMO. And there is no better person to bring us some comprehension, some enlightenment, and some in-depth analysis. Fortunately, I don't have so much time on the clock because he has to be away from me by 1 o'clock. I wish I had time. So given that we don't have time, sir, it's a pleasure having you here. Thank you very, very much for making today's appointment.
Thank you, Joyce. I can hear you clearly. Thank you.
Fantastic.
And thank you, dear listener.
Yeah. You're not only a doctor, but you're also tech savvy. You're a man of many disciplines, indeed. How are you doing, sir? So good to see you this morning. Oh, this afternoon, rather.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm excellent.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I wish I could have you in the studio, but given that the internet is fine today, glad. Let's get into it. GMOs, we've heard it. We vaguely comprehend it, and I think I speak for those who have an idea what it can be but have no proper understanding of what it really is. So how would you describe GMO? What is it exactly?
Thank you once again, Joyce, and thank you, dear listener. It's a pleasure to be here with you this afternoon. Interestingly, the concept and context of GMOs has been promoted in this country of ours, Nigeria, today. It's so vague to so many people, interestingly and surprisingly, people that you wouldn't expect to be unaware, ignorant, so to speak, about what GMOs are. But basically speaking, GMOs are an acronym for genetically modified organisms, genetically altered organisms. They could be seeds, plants, crops, they could be animal, they could be bacteria, they could be microbia. But whatever living organism or whatever organism is genetically modified, when we say genetically modified, the gene is the center, is the place where the coding of life, the characteristic traits and functions of living organisms are situated. So that is what makes humans have 2 legs, the genes of humans encoded in the information that makes humans have 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, a single mouth, and all of that. The ability to speak, unlike other animals. These are encoded in the genetic material of the species of humans or whatever species it is. So now we are saying that genetically modified organisms are organisms. They could be food crops. They could be whatever they choose to. Organisms whose genetic material is artificially altered in a laboratory by a process known as biotechnology engineering. It's not a natural process. It's different from what some people may confuse as hybrid seeds or hybrid crops. Hybrids are done naturally or with the aid of humans to align with the natural process to produce offsprings. That means it involves two parent stocks. But genetic modification does not involve parent stocks. It's an artificial process that we get into the laboratory, get into the genome, the genetic makeup of that organism, and we insert these characteristic traits that we want. They could be imported from an entirely different organism, not related to the species that is being altered. So in a nutshell, that is what genetically modified organisms are.
Curious. You say it could be imported from a different organism all by itself. So
Absolutely.
So are you saying that you could import a gene that has a tendency to, for example, create or grow proteins in humans, so that when a human, for example, eats a particular kind of food, there is a tendency for that food that they have eaten to bring about spike proteins, or how do I put it? The things that force cell to mutate. I'm not sure the better scientific phrasing for that.
Yeah, but that is the phraseology.
Okay.
The experience we've had from research literature is that, number one, over in history, there was a genetically modified tomato that is apparently, it's supposedly in the market today. That tomato lasts longer on the shelf, has a more shiny skin. The gene that provided that shiny skin for that tomato to make it more aesthetically attractive was imported from fish, from a particular fish. So it was not even from a plant. That proves positive that genes could be imported from whatever organism to confer the desirable trait of the engineers, the biotechnology engineers, or those who are sponsoring and funding the genetic modification for whatever intention, whatever purpose they want to achieve. Now, clearly that is what is really happening. From research literature, we have seen that genetically modified foods eaten by humans or by animals confer mutagenicity. They could cause genes to mutate. They confer teratogenicity, and they confer carcinogenicity. That means they are creating cancers. So that means the genetic makeup, which confers ability, functionality to human organs or human organisms or animal organisms or whatever organism, has the capacity to do whatever it is coded or programmed to do. So it is proof positive. It's what is being experienced. It's replete in literature. You don't need to dig far before you will see that this is already happening.
What is the problem? Now, you're the scientist, you're the professor, you're the medical practitioner. What is your personal concern with GMO? I can tell you, for one, that it's marketed as the food of the future, or the crop of the future that has the capacity to eradicate global hunger. So when we watch global reports, we're told that there is massive hunger in the world, and we need new forms of engineered crops in order to fix that problem. And so I guess the people who may support the GMO would put that forward as an argument or a defense for GMO. What is your concern, being a practitioner? Why is there trouble with GMO?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's not just my concern, it's a global concern. First of all, the claims of GMOs being the food of the future, it's actually not founded. It turns Malthusian economics over its head. And these people that are promoting these things are students of Thomas Malthus. And they are saying that there is global hunger now. If the global population has reached the level it is now, what then has orchestrated the hunger? What then supported the population to have grown to this level? Was it not food? So the right questions, and this is my concern from my scientific perspective, the right questions to ask are quite disconcerting though. How did we get to the food scarcity or global hunger or food insecurity scenario that is being touted around the world today by these same organizations, non-state actors, fronted by some United Nations-backed organizations and non-governmental organizations and civil society organizations in their ache, promoting the narrative that there is global food insecurity, there is global hunger. How did we get to this point? The issue is this. All over the world, food is being produced in large quantities. Food is being wasted in large quantities because of certain agronomic, certain storage, and certain engineering and economic issues. For example, here in Nigeria, and I'm speaking from the food basket of Nigeria, the Benue state of Nigeria, we produce a lot of food here. And for the past 1 or 2 decades, there has been this scenario of herdsmen attacks on farmer populations and farming centers. And I realized we have searched and researched and found out that it's not just in Benue, in most places that there is a so-called, I say so-called doesn't mean it doesn't exist, but I'm trying to imply that the reasons for which it's said to be happening are false. Where there are attacks on bandit attacks or terrorist attacks, Boko Haram, if you look at the northeast, if you look at the northwest, all over the places where they are attacking our food production centers. And this has happened in Nigeria for an upward of a decade and a half. Here in Benue, in Nasarawa, in Taraba, and Niger State, in the Yobe State, in Borno State, are food production centers. In Katsina State, in Zamfara State. These are food production centers. And because these things were deliberately allowed to fester for more than a decade and a half, clearly it was expected by general progression that there will be a negative impact on food production. So now let's just interrogate the causes and the sources of what is touted today as food scarcity or food insecurity. Food production centers have been physically attacked, farmers have been killed, many hundreds of thousands, if not millions of them across the country have been chased from their ancestral farmlands into internally displaced persons camps. And what do you expect? Food production farming activities truncated, negatively impacted, and progressing to the future. Children that are born in IDP camps today by farming families no longer have the opportunity to learn the farming practices, the farming culture. Because for us in Africa, for us in Nigeria, and particularly for my own place in Benue State, where I dwell, where I function, I do my trade, my vocation, the people here have agriculture as a cultural thing that they transmit from generations to generations. Here we are today, that insecurity has been used to chase the farmers away from their farms. And they are now giving the children in IDP camps because some of these families have been in IDP camps for over a decade and a half. So children are being born there who have no linkage, no connection to the cultural culture, to the culture of farming. And what do you expect? There will be more food scarcity in the future because the people who practice farming are cut off from their farmlands. What are they planning to supplant this with? What they want to do is to bring large corporate farmers from outside Nigeria and some of their collaborators from within Nigeria. But what do they want to plant? Genetically modified foods. So on one breath, you are cutting smallholder farmers away from their livelihood, from their culture, from their food production, because it is on record that 82% to 84% of all food consumed in this country is supplied by smallholder farmers. And now you are bringing genetically modified foods because you wanted to create a scenario to introduce your trade, patented seeds. So to answer your question directly, my problem with the issue of GMOs stems fundamentally from that. Secondly, we have known from research that they negatively impact on health of consumers, be they animals or humans. There are a lot of research reports in published reports in journals, reputable journals across the globe, of the negative impact, like their propensity to cause cancers, like the proliferation of breast cancers in females and testicular cancers in males, and even gastric intestinal cancers, colon cancers in those that consume those foods. Again, they also come with a concomitant application of herbicides and pesticides on their agricultural fields because they are genetically modified. Most of them are genetically modified to resist herbicides that are generally applied on agricultural fields to clear weeds. Hitherto, when herbicides were applied by farmers, the strength of the herbicides was negatively also affecting the crops that they were meant to protect from weeds. But now, the same companies that produce those herbicides are actually the companies that are behind the production and promotion and distribution of genetically modified organisms, like Monsanto, like Bayer, like Syngenta, like Dow Chemicals. All of them have been in the business of production and distribution of agrochemicals, chiefly amongst which are herbicides. Now, because these herbicides were also adversely affecting the traditional crops, they went back to the laboratories to genetically modify those seeds so that they can push those seeds into the agricultural fields. As farmers adopt them and plant them, farmers will now be positioned at liberty to apply freely, to apply generously higher concentrations of herbicides to kill weeds, which, for example, we are beginning to become resistant to the traditional herbicides that were being applied anyway. So now you can see a plethora of negatives surrounding genetically modified organisms. And we cannot close our eyes and look at this brazen rape on the environment. Mind you, chemicals like glyphosate, which is the primary ingredient in Roundup that is so ubiquitously applied by farmers across the length and breadth of this country. These are chemicals that are being pumped into our environment. They are toxic to aquatic organisms. Chemicals like atrazine, herbicides like atrazine, which are also applied because due to the emergence of super weeds, due to this ubiquitous application of herbicides, there is currently a need for farmers to apply higher concentrations, higher dosages of chemicals, herbicides. And in other climes, what the farmers are doing now is to create a cocktail, mixing up different herbicides together to increase strength and to apply to prefer a broader spectrum of attack on the weeds. And what that entails is that more toxic and highly dangerous chemicals are being pumped into our environment as a result of the introduction of genetically modified organisms. How and why? Because now these organisms, these seeds, these crops are engineered to resist herbicides. They will no longer be adversely affected by the herbicides. Therefore, the farmer is at liberty to apply herbicides to kill the clear weeds so that these crops can grow better and have less competition of plant nutrient resources with the weeds. So what we are seeing is that on one front, the farmer, the physical security, strategic national security of our country, of our farmers, of our compatriots is being impacted. Two, health-wise, these genetically modified organisms are affecting consumers. They are mutagenic, teratogenic, carcinogenic, and they are causing different other ailments that we're hitherto not seen in the kind of populations that we are seeing those ailments, like juvenile diabetes, like memory decay. Nowadays, you find people who are barely 50 years, 60 years having memory issues because of these things. Number three, the impact on the environment with the chemicals that are applied that follow those genetically modified organisms. Number four, the impact on biodiversity, because genetic modification promotes monocropping agriculture. That means the biodiversity, the diversity of food crops that we knew, that you and I knew, we are going to see them gradually and very speedily, not gradually, speedily. Of our agricultural diversity.
Explain a little bit about that, because when you speak about how the crop-resistant GMO seeds that are planted become much more tolerant to whatever weeds could affect their growth.
No, not the weeds. Not the weeds. They become tolerant to the herbicides.
Oh, to the herbicides.
Now,
does that affect
because
other
that is even one
organic
of
foods? The other organic foods that do not share the same genetic modification, would that affect natural crops, other natural crops as we know them?
Absolutely, because the concentration and the strength of herbicides that have been applied now will negatively impact on seeds or crops that are not genetically modified to be herbicide tolerant. But in addition to that, we also see a scenario where, because of the strength of the genetic code, the genetic modification in those crops, they cross-pollinate with organic seeds that are planted within the perimeter of the vicinity. Sometimes it is even stated in reports that up to 600 meters around. Because, of course, pollinators like bees, insects, and wind that help to pollinate crops, we now pollute the natural organic seeds. Therefore, you are gradually going to see an extinction from existence of natural organic seeds from our agricultural landscape. That means we are going to be promoting the monocrop seeds that are being imported and enforced upon us. So that, for example, the teller maize that is ignorantly being promoted by the federal government agencies that granted a permit, that teller maize will eventually wipe off all other varieties of maize that are not genetically modified, planted within 600 meters vicinity of the genetically modified organisms farm. So this will promote monocropping and gradually wipe off our traditional seeds. And it will also affect biodiversity, because the more chemicals you pump into the environment, the more adversely they affect pollinators like bees and other insects. And these insects will also, as we are seeing from research nowadays, most of these insects are going into extinction too. And that means you will see gradual increase in crop failure. As farmers plant crops, eventually these crops will not yield much because there will be limitations of pollination. And that feeds into the narrative of those transvendors that are promoting those genetically modified organisms. Because when traditional crops fail because they are not pollinated adequately, they will now use that to confuse farmers, to compel farmers to adopt their genetically modified organisms, thereby aiding the rapid proliferation of these genetically modified organisms. No country does that. And there is one very important aspect I needed to mention, economic aspect. There is a concept of food sovereignty. He who controls your food controls your life.
I was just about to ask you about that, the autonomy of farmers.
Yeah, not just the farmers, the entire country. Because what happens is this. Number one, these seeds are proprietary materials. They are patented. The patents are owned by transnationals like Monsanto, now Bayer, like Dow, like Syngenta. These are the companies abroad. They are not national companies. They own the patents. And they are not going to, this is technology that they invested in. So they're not going to give it to you free. So what happens to you? You have to go back because they are patented materials. Right now, there's a seed varieties law in this country that forbids farmers from replanting proceeds or produce that they get from those seeds. And that is what they are doing all over the world. It has happened in India. It has happened in other countries where they have entered. Now, secondly, because they are programmed seeds, most of them are programmed not to regenerate. That means if you replant them after harvesting, they won't produce. And in one of my symposia we organized in Abuja, we interviewed a farmer who had a large farm in Bauchi State. He planted them, they gave him those seeds. It was actually a particular, cowpea. He planted them and then he harvested. They discouraged him from replanting. He insisted that, the harvest was wonderful. He replanted. Where he got 8 tons per hectare, the next generation, he could struggle to get 0.8 tons per hectare. And that's what they're programmed to do. So secondly, they are programmed not to reproduce. They are sterilized. They are sterile. And that reminds me of another thing that I forgot to mention. You see, the health impact also includes, it borders on population reduction. Because as people consume those seeds, they have genes, programmable genes that cause them to be sterile. And it is also expected, and there are some instances of research reports that animals that were fed these genes became sterile, the females became sterile. And that means if humans consume them, humans would find it difficult to reproduce. And little wonder, the same promoters of these technologies are the ones jumping around to our Federal Ministry of Health and our federal government institutions trying to promote the establishment of over 250 fertility clinics in Nigeria.
Wow. Oh, hold
Where
that
did
thought.
they get the data?
I would love for you to continue
Yeah.
on that thought when we come back. We're going to quickly go off on a break. I want to hear what you have to say regarding the promotion of fertility clinics in Nigeria. We're 99.3. This is Nigeria Info. My name is Joyce. Don't go anywhere.
Ladies and gentlemen, Football Fan Festival in Nigeria is back. It's Goldfest 2024, featuring exhilarating games, food, comedy, live music by some of the Nigerian musician superstars, and you can watch the UEFA Champions League final on a super huge screen. Goldfest 2024 will take place on the 1st of June at the Balmoral Convention Center, Federal Palace Hotel, Amadabella Way, Victoria Island, Lagos. Time 12 noon. Limited tickets available. Get your tickets now at www.goldfestnigeria.com
Or at 267A at Timmy and Crescent, VI Lagos.
Goldfest 2024 is powered by Femi and the Gang and Football Republic. Proudly refreshed by Pepsi.
Who says you can't have it all with one play?
I got that defined point. You have just won yourself.
Congratulations.
Hello, good morning.
Yes, Melitus. One player, don't talk to two players because you won 20K.
So now you won yourself 20,000 naira. My name is Well Done. Okay, well done. You want to tell you well done? You won yourself 20,000 naira.
With 500, you can play to win big from 120,000 naira to 190,000 naira daily on Nigeria Info. Go to oneplay.ng and play with 500 naira. And in a few seconds, your ticket is in the draw. 347*80*3 and daily on Nigeria Info. 50,000 on Morning Crossfire. Steve also 60,000 naira on Game On. Thus, what are you waiting for? The more you play, the better your chances of winning. Remember to dial *347*880*3#. Play responsibly. Suitable for persons under the age 18.
We're back.
We're back.
We're back.
We're back.
We are back.
We're back on 99.3 Nigeria Info.
99.3 Nigeria Info, the sunny side. I have only 3 unfaithful minutes. I wish 3 minutes could stretch a little longer with our guest this afternoon. His name is Professor Qrisstuberg Amua, and we're discussing GMO. And I love your observation. I love the silence with which you're taking this in. Sir, before the commercial break, you were speaking about the promotion of fertility clinics. I want to hear what your persuasions are, what your inclinations are, what you think could be in the works here, because I think through the eyes of a professor and a medical practitioner, we are able to interpret some of the images that we get to see, because many times we see things that we don't know how to interpret because they all come to us as though they're a form of goodwill. It's like, you're given GMO seeds and it's marketed to you as a form of goodwill. Well, you can make money. You can have an insane harvest, except the next time you're going to be harvesting or planting, you're going to be buying the seeds. So what can you tell us about fertility clinics and what you've seen or heard?
Well, just a bit of a correction. I am a researcher in experimental medicine.
Researcher?
I'm not a clinician.
Okay.
Yeah. So I research in medical issues,
okay.
But I'm not a clinician.
Thank you.
But what I see is this. A new government comes into Nigeria, and then somebody flew from the US to visit the government. The next day, one of his former employees resigns. As a director from one of the organizations he's funding that is promoting this kind of fertility thing. Now the guy comes back, and the next day you hear his name is appointed the Minister for Health. Conflict of interest. Now, this fellow is the same fellow that is promoting genetically modified organisms. This fellow is the same fellow that is promoting vaccines of whatever brand or whatever kind. This fellow is not a medical doctor. This fellow is not a researcher in clinical or medical issues or pharmaceutical issues. He has no bearing with pharmacy. This is the fellow that is also promoting the establishment of 250 fertility clinics in this country.
For the purpose of what? For the purpose
of what? For the purpose of what? Now you begin to draw up these dots. You begin to connect them. I don't like speaking in absolutes because absolutes could be challenged by people who are less informed about these things. But you throw up those dots for let people who care connect them.
Yeah.
One person is promoting genetically modified organisms. The same person is promoting vaccines, and the same person is promoting population reduction. The same person is promoting fertility clinics. What does that tell you?
All right, sir. Look, I wish we had more time on the clock this afternoon. You have left us with serious food for thought, to be honest. I want to thank you so much, sir. I really look forward to having you right back here on the show again to poke us and force us to contend with our realities, and hopefully we can emerge with some sensibility and understanding to what's happening around our environment. Thank you very much, sir. Professor Qrisstuberg Amua, for your time this afternoon.
Thank you so much, Joyce. It's my pleasure.
Thank you. 99.3 Nigeria Info is 1 o'clock on the clock says 1 p.m. We're off on a break. We'll be right back with Nigeria Info.
This is
the sunny side. This is the sunny side.
It's 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock.
The news update on 99.3 Nigeria Info. 99.3 Nigeria Info. We are more than just radio. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Nigeria Info FM. Check us out on Facebook at Nigeria Info 99.3. Follow us on Twitter at Nigeria Info FM and on Instagram at Nigeria Info FM Lagos for live updates as it happens. 99.3 Nigeria Info. Let's talk.